All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X for 2026 Mets Spring Training coverage. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are recorded regularly every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time throughout spring training, even though we are live as of right now at 8 o'clock. Sometimes schedules change, but for those of you listening or watching on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss audio versions of our new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It will be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 190 of our show. And like I said, we are on a different time, a different day. We were regularly streaming on Friday, but today we are streaming on Thursday because I'm actually going to be going down to Port St. Lucie this weekend. And I am going to be spectating some Mets spring games while some of the players are at the WBC. Speaking of the WBC, we're going to get into some stuff about that. But beforehand, because of that, I do have some special guests joining me today. This duo has been on our show most possibly out of anyone, and they will be making more appearances over the next few weeks. If you follow us on X and on TikTok, you'll already know why. We'll get into that and remind you in a second. Please help us welcome back Evan and Matt from the Mets Central Podcast. Guys, great to have you back on here. Of course, we've got plenty to talk about this week going forward in Mets baseball. And then also we've got a WBC coming up that I think you guys are going to be heavily involved in coming up. It's just a sneaking hint. Let's just say that. Evan, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, it's great to be back on as always. And it's great that we actually have something to talk about in terms of at least spring training games and then the WBC coming up. It's exciting now that baseball is really starting to feel like it's coming back. I mean, we're 22 days away from opening day, if I'm not mistaken, something along those lines. It's just nice that, we're finally really seeing, a lot of things, and there's a lot of positives too, nonetheless, coming from spring training. So I look forward to talking about that.
Matt, you're also here, the co-host of Evan as well, this duo. You guys are a package deal. But either way, baseball's back in full swing. Mets are playing every day at 1 o'clock at Port St. Lucie or in Florida, and some more exciting baseball on the rise as well. Way more to come.
Yeah, like Evan talked about, always great to be back because we always have, great episodes whenever we're all together. Obviously, no Andrew today. He's making an appearance in the chat right now with his classic comments. But yeah, I mean, look, World Baseball Classic starting. It already started last night with Australia beating Chinese Taipei. That was, I think, 3-0. Obviously, U.S. starts their campaign tomorrow. Hopefully, we just saw a couple weeks ago the U.S. beat Canada to take gold medal at ice hockey at the Olympics. Hopefully, we get another, glorious U.S. run this time to take the World Baseball Classic. And yeah, I mean, listen, 3 weeks from today, also not spring training, but opening day. We're going to see Freddie Peralta take the ball against Paul Skeens against the Pirates on opening day. So yeah, I mean, baseball's coming. It's pretty much already here, but I'm glad because it takes our focus fully off that hockey team that no one wants to talk about that plays at MSG, and our full focus can now be on this team that plays in Queens at Citi Field.
Yeah, absolutely. I am ready to just completely shift off of them because not only are they horrible, but pretty much every single aspect of them makes me sick completely. And I don't want to discuss them. I don't even want to notice them. Either way, speaking of shifting that focus, like we said, an announcement was made on our channel a few days ago on here. And I do want to reiterate it just one more time. So once again, make sure to tune in at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time starting tomorrow for live watch-along and post-game coverage of Team USA's 2026 World Baseball Classic Group B qualifying round. Evan and Matt will be guest hosting right here on the Mets Weekly YouTube channel and on X. You do not want to miss it. Once again, 8 p.m. Eastern Time for all 4 pool play games. That is tomorrow, which is Friday, USA versus Brazil. Saturday, USA versus Great Britain. Monday, USA versus Mexico, and on Tuesday, USA versus Italy. And if Team USA qualifies, the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the championship will all have watch-along and post-game coverage as well. So if you're pumped for the World Baseball Classic and you want to join the conversation live, this is the place to be over the next 2 weeks. And we are really excited about that, obviously, because, the WBC is always fun. You get to see a mixture of teams, of course. You get to see some of the best in all of baseball showcase their talents. Obviously, you have some guys who are left out because of injuries or certain situations, which sucks, but you're always going to have that in that type of realm. We are actually going to preview the WBC coming up towards the end of the show to kind of fill in the end of this show. And hand it off to the upcoming live streams. But this is going to be extremely exciting. But beforehand, we actually have to get into some Mets baseball of what has been going on in Port St. Lucie before we get into all the fun of that March exhibition tournament that they got to get rid of, right? Get off my lawn. Get rid of it. It's awful. Either way. Speaking of a guy I don't want to get rid of, let's talk a little bit about some of the youth that actually has been going on and being showcased in Port St. Lucie, specifically on the pitching side, and that being someone who actually made a appearance against the Blue Jays last week. We didn't really get into it as much, but it more does go kind of into the future as to what the Mets are looking at with this bullpen right now, and that being Ryan Lambert, who I want to get into a little bit of a rundown on him because this is obviously some special stuff that we are dealing with. And if this is obviously harvest, this could be the future closer of this team. And I'm not even kidding. So let's get into Ryan Lambert. I want to get a little bit of a rundown here. Now, these are his metrics from the other day when he pitched against the Blue Jays. However, last year he was nothing but dominant. Majority of his time spent in Double-A. He had made 7 out of 9 save attempts, so he was primarily their closer. Almost 40% of the batters he faced, he struck out. A little bit high on the walks. However, did not allow that many base runners. As you can see, the walks hits per inning, or WHIP, or whatever you want to call it, 1.16 WHIP, a 1.62 earned run average, a fielding independent pitching of 2.13. Of course, as someone who does attack a lot of hitters, and he's someone who obviously throws very, very hard, he does give up a decent amount of fly balls. He is nowhere near a contact manager whatsoever. However, a lot of those fly balls stay in the park because he messes up a lot of timing of the hitters, of course, with that hard slider, and of course, a insane fastball that has over 20 inches of induced vertical break, which actually reached 23 inches of induced vertical break last week against the Blue Jays. And it's, of course, a fastball that can top 102 miles an hour. He's 23 years old, 6'3", 222 pounds, out of the University of Oklahoma. 8th round pick back in 2024, one of the first draft picks made by David Stearns, along with Chris Gross with his new scouting department. High spin on pretty much everything. Disgusting slider. Definitely knows how to get a decent amount of chases, an insane amount of swing and miss stuff. He stranded 85.6% of issued/inherited base runners last year, which was 3rd among all minor league relievers, which is a huge pool. He completed 11 multi-inning appearances across 46 games that he appeared in last year in 2025. And of course, this big story that we have been seeing recently about him chugging 30 raw eggs a day for a month 2 years ago to build muscle and increase his recovery rate, which is insane, but apparently it worked. But we all know with closers and relievers, the ramp up is a lot different for them. So when you see a starting pitcher maybe doing something like that, maybe it bodes a little bit more of concern. However, with a reliever, you kind of want some loose screws in him. You want a guy who's insane and can obviously build themselves on adrenaline. A guy like Pete Fairbanks is somebody that I can, kind of compare that to. There's some other guys, obviously, but again, Ryan Lambert is someone in this bullpen that we've talked about this publicly on our show. Andrew and I, in the chat, who's in the chat right now, we've talked about the lack of velocity that we think is more guaranteed in this bullpen. Again, I'm not trying to put pressure on the kid whatsoever, but this is major league types of stuff. Matt, I'll go to you first, obviously. We know that this bullpen is going to be a point of emphasis with Edwin Diaz departing. He's no longer here. Devin Williams, of course. But we know that Devin Williams has had most of his success in the eighth inning. So if you're talking about a guy like Ryan Lambert to give you that premier velocity and insane stuff that he does have, this is someone to look out for as a future piece to this bullpen because this stuff will 100% play in the major leagues.
Yeah, I mean, in the short amount of appearances that he's had so far in spring training, I mean, the guy's pretty much looked dominant every single appearance he's had. And I mean, the amount of velo that he gets on his fastball, I mean, the guy could top out at 100 miles an hour. That's what you want. That's what you expect from an elite closer. And, also you counteract that and you factor it in with the amount of induced vertical break that he generates on his fastballs and both his sliders. I mean, I forgot where or who I saw it from, but his numbers in terms of velo and induced vertical break was being compared to a guy like Jeremiah Estrada, who, funny enough, was actually a name that the Mets were connected with this offseason. We were kind of hoping that they could get him. Obviously, that deal with the Padres fell through, but I mean, listen, if the Mets could have like their own basically demon out of the bullpen that they developed all by themselves. I mean, again, this is something that, when you look around Major League Baseball and you look at some of the other smarter organizations within baseball, whether that be the Dodgers, the Braves, the Rays, or some of these other teams, they produce multiple amounts of these guys that are basically just these demons that come out of nowhere and they throw strikes, they throw hard, and they also get crazy movement on their pitches, whether that be fastball, slider, curveball. So it's just it is very nice to see, and it's also another factor too because ever since David Stearns has come in 2023, we've seen the Mets, they've kind of had, some breakthroughs in terms of the positional players. Obviously, Carson Bench, that's a guy that, is trying to crack the Major League roster. We've obviously seen some of the starting pitchers come through like McClain, Tong, Sproat, who's since been traded to Milwaukee for Freddie Peralta. Obviously, we'll talk about Freddie Peralta later in the show as well. But really, the bullpen is something that, we haven't really seen a lot of guys come through, and we haven't really seen a lot of, ton of success stories here and there. Obviously, there has been, the odd one here and there, I think one including Dednell Nunez, to which, we really didn't know too much about Nunez, and then he, came onto the scene in 2024. Unfortunately, got hurt and had to get Tommy John surgery, which speedy recovered in Nunez because that's a guy who was very valuable to that bullpen in their run in 2024. But like I said, we haven't really seen a ton of, guys come out of this bullpen and has been developed through the minor league system. But if the Mets could get this guy, in Ryan Lambert, and he could get him up to the major league level, throw strikes, and can become the that closer that could replace Edwin Diaz, and like you mentioned, Carson, you could move Devin Williams back to the eighth inning, which statistically he's been much better in the eighth inning compared to the ninth inning, and then as well you have guys like Dylan Ross who could also maybe take that role as well. You're starting to see that the Mets are generating this conveyor belt of young, youthful prospects to which. And they're also replenishable as well because, we're starting to see more and more and more, which again goes hand in hand with what I'm saying. This is what the smarter organizations in baseball do.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just about the pipeline of the next man up because obviously we talk about pitching or injuries all the time. Guys get hurt, obviously. There really has not been much of a injury concern so far throughout spring. I wonder why. But again, it's one of those things where we know that with David Stearns, he's been known to pump out relievers like crazy as of right now. It's one of those things where I think if they were to continue to see this thing blossom from the bottom up, obviously, you do see again with Ryan Lambert. We've talked about Dylan Ross as well. Pieces that have been drafted as well. They've been at the lower levels of the minor leagues, obviously, and then they kind of elevate after they perform as well. We've seen a lot of promotions, obviously, happen with a lot of these starting pitchers too. But when it comes to Ryan Lambert, this I think is when you talk about premier stuff that if it is Harvest and hopefully he stays healthy, this could be a contributing piece to this bullpen almost automatically. And this is the type of stuff that you think could 100% play. Evan, I don't know how you feel obviously about this, but we know that there are concerns going into this bullpen. If you could go from internal and talk about some of these guys internally, I'd say that Ryan Lambert, out of all of them who possibly could come in internally for the bullpen, is one of the most closest to a sure thing. And he's shown it at the minor league level, and he just shows it with the pure stuff that he has, which can be so dominant, like Matt just said, being compared to Jeremiah Estrada and even exceeding his fastball characteristics. I mean, it is something that could be very, very special on display, and something I personally have been waiting for with the back end of my mind of like, okay, maybe, how long does Diaz last? Obviously, Diaz is not here anymore, so we're moving forward with that.
Yeah, a lot of it's going to be building on both points that you made, mostly Matt's point about how this is what the good organizations do. They're able to pump in. I mean, look at what Stearns did in Milwaukee. He was able to move Josh Hader because Devin Williams was coming into that role. And, there was Abner Uribe as well, who was there. And just being able to replenish these options. And this is why, and, don't get me wrong, I still stand by what I said. I probably would have went a fourth year for Edwin Diaz to try to retain him.
Same here.
This is why they potentially didn't, because they know internally they're going to start developing these kind of pitchers to where, why are we going to pay guys in the back end of the bullpen when we could just manufacture them like they're nothing? Because, I mean, this dates back years now where we're constantly looking for the answer of who the closer is going to be, and it causes the Mets to have to give these big time contracts, whether it's Diaz on the last contract, Dellin Betances prior to that. You had, Anthony Swarzak's a name that they paid just to like really piss everyone off tonight. But like, that's what we're talking about here. And it's just, it messes with your payroll to give you the flexibility to address the other areas of the roster going forward. So it's really about opening up that financial flexibility as well as the fact that you are getting an arm while it is fresh. You are getting a younger arm versus trading for a guy or signing a guy that did it somewhere else. And, who knows how many years they have left here. And just in terms of the stuff that Ryan Lambert has with his fastball, I mean, it is unbelievable seeing like the pitcher profile charts and seeing how it's graded out like amongst some of the best in baseball, amongst the slider as well. I mean, this is a guy that I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to take the closer job this year. Do I think it's out of the realm of possibility? No, I really don't, by the middle of the season or maybe even late in the season. But at the very least, I could guarantee you he is going to get big outs for this team this year, which, like, the point that I wanted to build on that you and Andrew made, this bullpen, and we talked about it a lot on our show as well, that they need gas. They really do not have enough back there. And to be able to have this internally would be really huge for, not only just, a win for the pitching development and just for the sake of having another arm, but it would be a huge win for the rest of the bullpen because it moves everyone down a roll a little bit if he could come in here and give immediate success in high leverage spots.
I mean, it's one of those things where I think it's all really just about the level of talent that you're talking about with some of these relievers, with some of these pitchers. But relievers can find it, they can lose it at any point. Who knows? Maybe you see a struggle from him in the minor leagues. The thing is that the Mets need to find a pipeline of some sort, and whether it is coming from taking a flyer on guys or possibly drafting high upside relievers in the later rounds of the draft, you did see them do so and turn these guys into good minor relievers up in the upper levels, obviously. And like we even said with Ryan Lambert, there's still plenty of other guys. Dylan Ross, who we already mentioned, he's actually on their 40-man roster right now. He didn't get to pitch or make his debut. He was called up towards like the last 2 games of the season last year. They also have some other guys who have also been in the AA, high A type of realm. Brett Banks is another one who's just coming off of a breakout season. Sal Garcia is another one who is a little bit wild but has some nasty strikeout stuff. Ben Simon is another one who is actually going to be representing Team Israel in the WBC. There's Dakota Hawkins, who was a undrafted free agent that they signed a few years ago. He's coming off a really, really good year. There was Ryan Ammons, who was a Rule 5 trade acquisition as well. There's plenty of guys who they are putting through the system right now who could possibly be reliable pieces, but also apply stuff that could be applicable at the major league level. Usually when we see them draft pieces, there always is something like completely wrong with them, or they have a very high floor, or they don't really have anything that stands out. A guy like Ryan Lambert, I mean, when you have, triple digits, induced vertical break that can reach 23 inches of induced vertical break, you also have a insane pitching pipeline of guys who also could possibly adjust to being a reliever if they can't do so. I mean, you're really, really starting to slowly see them build this farm system up. However, I am just a little bit I'm nervous to see how they handle it. That's basically it. I don't know if it's going to be the usage of guys who are just going to sit in AAA as long as they do in the environment that they do, and try to get their feet wet at that position. Because Ryan Lambert is obviously going to be was in AA. He has not played AAA yet, and he's going to start off in AAA this year. But it's more of the fact of when is it going to be these guys' turn. I think that Ross being on the 40-man roster, he's obviously going to be the first guy there. He does have some good stuff, but he's a little bit less polished in overall pitchability, I would say, in comparison to a guy like Ryan Lambert coming out of the college level. It's one of those things where how long is the leash going to be on some of these relievers until they actually say, well, we want this guy up here. We want this young guy up here to try and take the reins for a back end part of the bullpen. And I'm really, really intrigued to see so. I'm just really, really hoping that we don't have to wait that long for stuff like this. I don't know if that's what you guys kind of agree with, because it's one of those things where relievers are a point of wasting bullets. You can't waste bullets so much, even though they pitch so little and they have, a 1 inning or a 2 inning. This is the type of stuff you want in the major leagues. You want to fast track this to the major leagues. It's not like he's, a 19-year-old kid. He's 23 years old, about to be 24. So I'm really, really excited to see so, but I am very, very concerned with how they form the roster in this way and try to acclimate some of these young pieces that we know could possibly contribute at the major league level because of how advanced they have more become with their player development and their overall pitching development. I'm just hoping that the leash is a little bit tighter on some of these veterans that maybe either have struggled or are on very, very close to the DFA train. Like, I don't want to see a Ryan Stanek get so much leeway. I don't want to see an Adam Ottavino get so much leeway when we know that there's other pieces that could be a lot better, and we've seen the very best of a lot of these relievers, which we all know last year they made so many transactions here and out of some of these relievers up and down. I want these guys to get their fair shot, because this is the only way you can build a cost controllable bullpen, is by developing your own pieces.
Yeah, they just went through way too many pitchers last year, but that's really going to be the interesting thing, because it's such a win-lose situation to where, you don't want to see these guys like Luis Garcia, Brazabon, Brian Hudson, Tobias Myers, you could throw in that conversation, fail. The only thing I'll say is at least they have a little more leeway with some of those guys this year, because some of them have options, like Brazabon having one, Tobias Myers, to where, the thing is AJ Minter also is going to come back and take one of those spots. But I just don't want to see the revolving door that we saw last year. And it's like, if there's an opportunity here, and like you said, if someone is the Ryan Stanek of this year, please just cut them immediately. And if Ryan Lambert's thriving in AAA, there's no reason to not call him up over whoever else they might have down in AAA, like Brandon Waddell. Like, sure, just because he can mop up a few innings, why would you want that instead of getting the guy that has good stuff that plays in the major leagues, and you add some depth to your bullpen that way? But yeah, I mean, I do have that concern as well, just because of the fact that we've seen it time and time again. But again, hopefully it's going to be a little bit different this year, because the one thing we did hear from Stearns is he wished he was a little more proactive in certain situations last year versus reactive. And, that's one of those things that you look at and say, okay, if the bullpen is having issues early, you got to address it immediately, instead of what you did last year, where they crawled to the deadline with the Zach Pops of the world and whoever else of the 50 names that they had. And even then they failed after the trade deadline with the acquisitions they made.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened with Danel Nunez. Obviously, he got injured, and, he has not been the same since. However, he did just completely come out of nowhere, because you obviously never know. But when you have things that you see under the hood that are so eye-popping, you have to give it a chance, and they have to be one of the first few guys in line. I think Dylan Ross will probably be ahead of Ryan Lambert, like I said, because he is occupying a 40-man roster spot at this current moment. But there are plenty of guys in this system who have come off of fantastic years and have eye-popping elements to them. And I'm not saying that every single one of them is going to hit, but I do want to see a pitching pipeline of pieces that, if somebody does end up getting hurt, if there is somewhat of concern, because it will happen, you need so much pitching, we're replacing it with somebody either in-house, or there is a pickup of a piece that we know could apply good things, obviously, and they can get the most out of them. And that's where I think that the biggest test is going to come with a guy like Justin Willard, who is the new pitching coach this year, in comparison to maybe some guys who had really, really good stuff that maybe they did acquire and ended up having success otherwise because it wasn't maximized here. Matt, I think it comes down to a point of, we need to see it be translated to the major leagues, obviously, but we know that these guys could be good. We know that they have, the potential to be really good relievers because of the stuff they possess. It really is just all about putting it together, and it starts with the message of the pitching coaching and the coaches just in general. But that's what I'm really interested to see if there is a little bit of a change there, and maybe we have a little bit more leeway to where, okay, we lose this guy, we're moving on to this, kind of similar to what the Brewers had under Stearns, and still do with him not being there.
No, 100%. I agree. And I think the main thing for me is, and like you said, it's about how these coaches, more notably Justin Willard, because he's the pitching coach. It's about how you handle these guys, and it's about putting them in the right situation to flourish. Because listen, obviously, I would love to see Ryan Lambert as soon as possible at the major league level, but I also know he's one of those guys to where, okay, you know you have a nice little talent here, but don't rush him. And obviously, for me, I would like to see Ryan Lambert come up here, not because the Mets bullpen is struggling and because they need arms desperately, but I want him to be up here because he's dominating so much down in AAA with the Syracuse Mets that he's forcing his way up to the major league roster. And I don't think we'll see that problem this year per se with the bullpen. Obviously, knock on wood, because injuries could happen and guys could always underperform. But I think this bullpen that Stearns has assembled this offseason, I think it's a lot more stable than it was going into last year, especially with some of the names. Obviously, like Williams is here, Weaver. Obviously the Mets last year didn't have Brooks Raley at the start of the year. He ended up coming midway through. Obviously, AJ Minter is going to come back. Hopefully, the earliest is May per se. Hopefully nothing too later. But like I said, you want to see Ryan Lambert come up here because he's dominating so much in AAA. Not that this bullpen is struggling so much that they need that extra arm. And also it goes hand in hand kind of with the Willard effect too, because we've seen quotes from ex-Mets relievers about Jeremy Hefner, how there was some times where he would mishandle some of these guys, and in terms of also deployment, because that's another big thing, like the deployment strategy of some of the bullpen options throughout the last couple of years, especially since Mendoza's been here and since Jeremy Hefner's been here. That's also been a huge head scratcher, because we've seen Denzel Nunez, like we were talking about before, he came off with an injury, and then you're using him for two innings in the same night against the Arizona Diamondbacks. It's like, where is the exact logic in doing this? So you hope that a guy like Willard, and at least for me, when I look at Willard, at least he does have a prior track record of improving, some guys, from his work in Boston. Obviously, Garrett Crochet was already an elite pitcher by the time he went to Boston, but he helped him improve him by, incorporating a sinker into his arsenal. We saw that he had a positive effect on Lucas Giolito. We saw, the effect that he had on a guy like Aroldis Chapman. Now, I know Aroldis Chapman already has, a very good resume in his major league career, but he kind of helped him, regain his form to the guy that we saw, when he was with the Yankees back in like 2017, 2018, and when he was with the Cubs. So, like I say, it's all about, how you just use him the right way and putting him in the right situations.
Yeah, I mean, Garrett Crochet finally was able to be a full-time starter that was not really breaking down or had an innings limit whatsoever, and that was another thing that I think is coming of emphasis with a lot of this pitching staff, and that being the health of these guys and keeping them healthy, and more of the recovery of the next day from how they do recover from these certain starts. Now, obviously, it's a little bit different with bullpen arms, but bullpen arms drop dead. We've seen them drop dead. We saw them drop dead last year. Lots of Tommy John surgeries last year. It's all really just about them trying to prevent that. And that obviously that goes in hand with somebody like Ryan Lambert, who, again, could possibly, blossom into the future closer of this game. And I'm not trying to put complete pressure on the kid, but it seems like he likes it a lot and he's a nut job. And, again, this is the type of stuff that you see from a modern day closer, where they have a lot of either antics or theatrics or crazy stuff that they do to stay on adrenaline and get those last guys out in high leverage situations. You really, really do hope so, that a guy like Ryan Lambert can come in through that. Now, again, with Lambert, of course, he did pitch his career high in innings last year. Did not have as many multiple inning appearances, but he did obviously appear in 46 games, which were split amongst High A. Only 8 innings in High A, Double A. 42 of those 50 innings that he had last year were there. The thing is that when you're talking about overall profiles, you're talking about the overall under the hood piece stuff. It's all really just about what do they do well, and how can we apply it, obviously. And one thing that Ryan Lambert does well is attack hitters and gets huge amount of swings and misses. Not to mention also suppressing the barrel with, yes, the walks that come with it, but also the fact that not a lot of the fly balls he gives up, and he gives up a decent amount of fly balls, leave the yard. So again, there's a lot of things to like about this, and to be honest, throughout his entire minor league career, he has pitched, let's say, I think it's about 100 innings in relief so far. He started off in the beginning of at the end of 2024. He's given up 2 home runs. 2 home runs his entire minor league career, which is pretty impressive when you're talking about a future reliever, obviously, who attacks batters the way that he does. So it's definitely something that I think is going to be very, very intriguing. And again, I am praying, I am hoping, I would love to see this guy easily slide himself into the 9th inning for this team and become the closer for this team, with Devin Williams moving over to the 8th inning, which we know by history, he has a better career as an 8th inning guy. He could be a 9th inning guy, but we know that he can be better in that 8th inning, better as a setup guy. He has the history of being better as a setup guy, even in comparison of something that I know that David Stearns knows. We all know that David Stearns knows. He was setting up Josh Hader in Milwaukee for a majority of the time that he was there. He was also setting up a guy such as Abner Uribe for the last few the last year that he was there. He was setting up guys like Trevor McGill. Like, he was setting up a lot of these guys. And even though I do believe that Devin Williams is going to have a lot better of a year, I still think that that it comes to a point where you do need to see down the final stretch of the season. The bullpen is always going to be in different flux in comparison to what it is going into opening day. And I think we all can agree with that. The Mets bullpen was very, very different for over these past 2 seasons. And not to mention whether it comes with the injuries, whoever struggles, whoever thrives, I really, really believe that they are lacking velocity in that way. I know velocity isn't everything, but they're also lacking a lot of that high profile stuff. Something in terms of some of these high profile guys that maybe they were attached to in the offseason, and there isn't much either. I don't know if it's faults to them, but there is a very, I'm hoping that there just isn't a very low floor to a lot of these guys that they are developing at this current moment. And I'm not saying I want somebody to be completely perfect, but if you're talking about dominant stuff that possibly could replace Edwin Diaz, you talk about a guy in Ryan Lambert and not someone like Devin Williams, who you know what he's capable of. However, it comes to a point where you know that he's just better fixed as a setup man. Even though he is capable of it, he's better fixed as a setup man. That is statistically proven, and he's had a fantastic career. But if you want, the 95 to 96 being the high profile of your bullpen, that's kind of hard when you're talking about, a league that can hit that easily. So it's all really just about the command, which I think that is going to be enforced a lot from a guy like Justin Willard. But I'm also excited to see a lot of these young guys come up here through the system and be a pipeline of guys who can just be, either dominant or figure things out and manipulate what they are really, really good at, instead of, I don't know, whatever Jeremy Hefner was doing for 6 years here, which didn't seem like enough. So again, if you guys want to add anything else around with this bullpen, Ryan Lambert, obviously, we're going to put a bigger spotlight possibly on him once he gets back out here. And he's, if he has a great year in AAA, but I'm very, very excited to see what they have working in this pitching pipeline. And we're starting to see it bit by bit. of guys getting called up, getting their chance up here. And I'm very, very excited to see how any of these guys pan out, because with the depth that they have been creating in this minor league system, it's very, very exciting to know. It's like, well, you have a lot of these pieces that maybe one or two of them will hit, and one or two of them hitting in your bullpen internally with your financial flexibility to possibly get somebody else if you need to, can go a long way. Really can.
Yeah, especially because of the point that I touched on before, that like this organization just does not have the track record of doing it, or at least anytime recently. They just do not have that track record of being able to develop these guys in-house. And, like Matt said before, it's really going to come down to, as a whole, how these guys are utilized, because I don't want to see a Reed Garrett situation where we're running guys into the ground. I don't want to see a Denell Nunez situation where he gets hurt. He comes back for that game against Arizona, I believe it was, or San Diego, one of those teams on the West Coast swing, and they have him go and pitch multiple innings, first coming back from an injury. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I want them to actually treat these guys with care and actually preserve these arms a little bit more, compared to just being like, you know what? Let's just use them up because none of the relievers matter but Edwin Diaz. And it's like, then you had the opposite problem with Diaz, where they didn't use him enough at points last year.
Yeah. It's one of those things where they got to find the median, and they have to pay attention to that certain details so they don't put themselves in a position where they have guys coming up that have no business being up here. And like we said, over, 50 pitchers used last year? I mean, they used so many pitchers that didn't belong here. They really just did not whatsoever. Either way, Tony in the chat saying that the Mets need a person like Lambert as the closer. Dude reminds me of Charlie Sheen in Major League. That is Rick Vaughn's character for Major League 1 and Major League 2. Yeah, let's just hope if he has eyesight issues, they get him glasses really, really quick, and they don't just completely waste away and have him, throwing fastballs at, mascots and other people of the crowd. That would be nice. I've seen enough wild guys, let's just say that. But when you throw as hard as he does, you are going to be susceptible to him losing his control a little bit. And that's probably the main reason as to why he'll be eased in. That's why he will probably be someone who starts off in AAA, obviously, but it is very, very, important to have these pipeline pieces, which the Mets have really had a scarcity of. I'm tired of having a premium at a department when you have the resources to develop your own. It should be a lot better than this, and hopefully this wave of prospects that are being drafted by this current regime, hopefully they come to fruition over these next few years. And I am very, very hopeful that they will, because we have seen it happen in Milwaukee under David Stearns. Tony also saying it's been a long time since the Mets had kids in their farm that can come up and become stars. Last time was 05, 06 with Reyes and Wright. And that's the thing. Those guys don't have to be stars. That's the good thing about it with a lot of these guys in this minor league system, because they have other options that can protect it and maybe possibly push these guys to be a little bit better. But, guys like Wright and Reyes, they had to come up here and be stars and be key pieces to this team. When you talk about guys like Carson Benj, he's got to bat ninth on this team. That's it. Those are pieces, that are protected well and are in a good situation where they can possibly develop. Now, if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. Not everybody is going to pan out. But, it's one of those things where player development is very paramount to an organization going in the right direction. I don't want to reference the team that should have learned their lesson with that, and but hey, we won't get into it. We won't get into it. We're gonna push it aside about player development, because we could go on forever about that hockey team's player development and how much that has hurt them as much as it has. Let's see. Tony also saying that was the last time since the Cheeto Bear we had the position player come up and be good. I mean, they've had a handful of pieces, but they also just weren't maximized to their ability where they were bona fide pieces every single year that you could write in. I'd say that, Alonso was one of them. But, different situation, of course. No one will ever scoop like him. It's just, it's awful. But they have had pieces that have done well. But it's all about more of the consistency of the pipeline, which a lot of good organizations do, where sometimes if a guy does leave, such as the Cheeto Bear, maybe there's somebody else next in line that can, fill in something like that. That's what good player development does. But I just want to see a quantity and quality as well, but a lot more of quantity of lottery tickets that possibly could hit. And that's really, really important. And that's something that the Mets have been trying to build up while they've been in this era, obviously. NGPZ, I don't know. He's saying in the chat, saying that you can tell Ryan Lambert is going to be good purely based on the eggs debacle. Are we calling it a debacle or like an experiment that he did? Apparently he saw like a TikTok video and he was like, yeah, I'm going to chug eggs to bring up my velocity and my recovery. Because apparently he was like cut from his either high school team or something, and he had that motivation. Just like Michael Jordan. Did you guys know that Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team? But
so he's the Michael Jordan now of baseball. Nice.
He kind of is, yeah. No pressure, kid. No pressure.
We'll go from the Trumpet Man to the Eggman, though, as our closer. I mean, you gotta love it.
Yeah,
whatever works.
Whatever works, obviously.
Or since we love the animal thing, I guess he'll be the
him.
Chicken Man.
Yep, the Chicken Man,
we got Polanco,
we
the
go
platypus.
on forever for this.
I mean, yeah, we got the whole animal kingdom
Polanco,
right now.
the platypus. He's at first base. Shout out Ibby for that one.
If he's going to be the Chicken Man, just don't let Andrew run after him with a cleaver to make chicken tenders. That's all I ask.
All right. Well, we'll try. Some of you guys were actually asking about Andrew. Andrew will be back likely next week. He hasn't been feeling the best, but he's all good. And he is currently watching comfortably from his house right now. I told him take this week off. Settle down. Don't go nuts. Because he was definitely going through the ringer. I will say he was not having a fun week in terms of his health. But he is good. As Tony is saying in the chat, saying, get better, stud. Andrew, you're a stud, apparently.
Hey, listen, that's what happens when you labor that much time in the kitchen trying to bake things. You just get sick. It happens.
The heat takes you over. It's
so much heat.
Whatever. But, when it gets too hot, sometimes it's too warm. Sometimes it comes from lightning, that happens. It's a rough thing. We all get sick.
Ride,
things go
some
around.
might say.
Sometimes a lightning ride. Sometimes you could catch something at the kiddie pool. That could happen. Plenty can happen. Let's just say that's life's unpredictable like that. You just never know.
You never know what the flow
Anyways. Speaking of unpredictable, and we don't know what is going to happen going forward, however, we would love to see this progress. Let's talk a little bit about Freddie Peralta and his future with the team, because obviously the Mets acquired him from Milwaukee. He has one more year left on his deal, $8 million here in 2026, and then he becomes a free agent. And we know that with the Mets trading as much as they did, there is a little bit of I'm not going to say pressure, but anticipation for the Mets to possibly, extend this guy and keep him here long term, because we know that Peralta not only has had a good career so far, and he is one of the best frontline starters in the game. Whether you want to call him a number one or a number two, he is one of the best on, if you want to talk like top 25, top 30, like he is a really, really good pitcher, and he's proven a lot over these past few years. But we also know that he is young enough to where maybe he's got maybe like 3, 4, 5 more top line years left of his career, and hopefully the Mets can take advantage of that and sign him more long-term. And there was a article that came out from Ken Rosenthal via The Athletic talking about the potential contract extension that the Mets could have with Freddie Peralta. And obviously there was some stuff about from Will Salmon and Tim Britton talking about that early on, but we never really got like an official note and docket about it of all the different details. So basically, some of the excerpts from this article, Ken Rosenthal said via The Athletic that Peralta, entering his age 30 season, said he doesn't want to be one of those high dollar short-term deals that suddenly are in fashion and the kind that make the Mets president of baseball operations, David Stearns, more comfortable. Naturally, Peralta already is loving life in the Mets clubhouse. He initially feared that his new team might try to change his routine, but nothing of that sort has occurred. The Mets, from the players to the coaches to the athletic trainers, have all been easy to work with, as Peralta said. Comparing Peralta to pitchers of similar age and accomplishment, Will Salmon, and Tim Britton, both some of the best in the Mets beat, projected a 4-year, $112 million extension for Freddie Peralta. If Peralta indeed wants a longer deal, the Mets could find themselves in paths to satisfy him, perhaps by adding years, but at a lower AAV. He was headed back to a team run by Stearns, back to a city that already seems like home. Baseball teaches us to expect the unexpected, but a contract extension for Peralta seems inevitable. It's already difficult to imagine him elsewhere. So here's the thing. We all know that there is a little bit of pressure because the Mets did give up in terms of prospect return, depending on how you feel about them. And, I've had my thoughts about Jet Williams and I've talked about it on here, but we do know that they did give up 2 legitimate top 100. I mean, I don't know if Sproat was kind of on the cusp of that, but 2 top 100 prospects in exchange for 1 year of Freddie Peralta. You also got Tobias Myers as well, which is a good sweetener as well, because he is a really, really good reliever and a good long relief option. But the main focus obviously comes here with Freddie Peralta because Myers is under control through 2030, I think. So he's going to be here for quite a while. Either way, when it comes to Peralta, I don't know if this is how you guys feel here. I am willing to go to like a 5th or 6th year if he wants it, but obviously it has to be more of the lower AV to have a little bit more of that room, obviously, and there is that picture that is on the market next winter that I want the Mets to have a clear shot at. And I want them to 100% get this done. We talked about this on our off-season grades with John Saponaro from Till Mets Do Us Part. He was on here of grading these off-season moves, and we had one ranking that was gem. It was like hit, miss, gem, meh, mix, a dud, or whatever. Those were all like the rankings. We had a gem as the top one. And, Frank, obviously, he's a big fan of Freddie Peralta, so he made it a diamond gem. For me, I made it a purple gem, which was the original, because the only way for it to turn into a diamond would be to extend him. That's the only way that this is an A-plus trade. Right now, it is an A trade for me. A-plus if they extend him. So I think we all know he's extension worthy. I don't even think we need to see him pitch that much in a Mets uniform to say, yeah, this is a guy you want here. Not just for 1 year, not here just for a rental. So, Evan, I'll go to you, obviously. We know that these talks are likely going to escalate over these next few weeks with getting closer to opening day. He's already said that opening day is not a deadline, which is just So pooky of him. Like, let's be real. Just so pooky. So pixie. But either way, I mean, this is a situation where it's like, we gotta get something done here. We know that there's a familiarity with him and Stearns. It almost seems like a perfect fit at this point from all of these reports that we are getting. You know, it's only a matter of time, I think, when this gets done.
Yeah, very pixie and whimsy. And I agree. I think that they'll get something done. I always felt when they made this trade, I mean, you're giving up the next Jose Altuve here, and you're giving up a future frontline starter if you ask your WFAN callers for Freddie Peralta. So they got to get an extension done, but nonetheless, I really don't care about going a 4th or 5th year either way, because the books are pretty much clean. Not even pretty much. They are clean outside of Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor after 3 years from now, if I'm not mistaken. It is a clean slate, so it should have no effect on them pursuing the other pitcher we talked about in Skubal. And what have we talked about so many times with how this front office wants to be ran? They want to go for the A-tier players. They don't want to settle for the Cheeto Bears of the world, even though I know he's unbelievable. He's an A-tier player in Mets fans' hearts. But
he had a mound conference the other day that showed his insane leadership.
Leadership. He shoots out polar bears. I mean, he does it all.
Yeah,
but
he does it all. Jack of all trades.
But nonetheless, we've spoke about how they should exclusively be shopping in that A tier, so it shouldn't change at all how they pursue Skubal this upcoming offseason. And, if we're going to sit here and play pretend right now, could you imagine a world where going into next year, they have Skubal, Peralta, and Noah McLean as the 1, 2, 3 of this rotation? It is fucking unbelievable come playoff time, what this rotation could be if they had those 3 at the top. So to me, you got to get this extension done. He's a guy where he's giving you innings too. So it's not someone that I worry about, that issue of, okay, he's going to regress quickly and you're going to run into these issues. He's a guy that takes the ball every 5th days, doesn't complain about heat fatigue. So I'm more than willing to go the 4th or 5th year. Would I prefer for them to lower the AAV then at that point? Sure. But at the same time, I don't think it's, really necessary to go and to lower the AAV. I don't think it's really necessary in that regard to be nitpicky in that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to look at this, and I'll give you guys just a projection based off of just fan graphs specifically, since his breakout year, which was 5 years ago, if you were to give him a 5-year deal, let's just say 5 years, if you add that up per wins above replacement and his overall value on the free agent market, you are looking at a 5-year deal worth $119 million, which would be about a $24 million AAV, which I would be perfectly fine adding in a 6th year with that and just being like, okay, adding, so that's like 23, 24, I'm trying not to, 133, right? 133.
I don't agree with this, that he's going to get a 7-year deal. No, I'm sorry. I don't think so. I think the most is 6 years.
I think if he gets a below market value AAV, that's the only way that he ends up getting a 7-year deal. Because after what we just, the thing is, after what we just saw Dylan Cease get, what he's done in compared to what he has done, obviously he is a Boris client and they pinch every single penny whatsoever. But he seems like someone who would keep things team friendly. But I feel like this also was a nod as to where I heard it. Okay. I feel like this comes to a point where if you were to break things down from what we are hearing from Peralta saying he wants to be here long term, I think that is more of a message of him saying, mainly because he's not a Boris client, saying, I'm willing to take lower AAV if I get more years. which I think is, again, it's plausible because he's you know, he has been in a, you know, been able to he's been able to you know, negotiate already with David Stearns, but it all really depends on what he obviously likes and what he wants, obviously. Is it going to be a team-friendly I don't know. But we'll see. Tony saying in the chat, he seems like he would take lower AAV, and even if it is deferred money, and this might be the only year that you're going to be able to do deferred money. We don't know what the stipulations are going to be with the new CBA, so you got to take advantage of that as well. There's plenty of reasons as to why that you know, should be in place. Obviously, Matt, I'll go to you on this. I don't think that there's really a number that I'm like, oh, that's way too much. Like this is a top frontline pitcher. You know that you gotta pay a decent amount. These are the types of guys that you want to overpay. He's not an ace. We know he's not an ace, but he is a very, very strong number 2. And like we said, like Evan just said, you know, not much money coming off the books. If you're talking about focal points with this team, down the line, Soto, Lindor, Peralta, that's a good way to start.
Yeah, I think just looking at all the factors, I think it's too good of a match not for an extension to happen. Like, again, like this is the second time that David Stearns has acquired Freddie Peralta. Like the first time being back in 2015 when they acquired him from Seattle in the Adam Lind deal. Obviously, they just gave up, you know, a couple months ago. They gave up both Brandon Sproat and both Chet Williams, which, again, listen, some people might consider that a high return. I really don't think it's that much of a, you know, crazy return, to be honest. I think Jet Williams might be a decent major league player. At the end of the day, I don't think he's going to be anything special. And with Sproat, decent starting pitcher, has the caliber to maybe be a 3-4 guy at the highest level at the major leagues. But to be honest, like, if you're giving up those two guys, and this is something, you know, that I talked about and both me and Evan did when the Mets first got Freddie Peralta, you make that trade 10 out of 10, even if it's just for like a 1-year rental, which I don't even think it's going to be a 1-year rental. I think they're going to extend them. Personally, what I think is going to happen, I think the Mets want to go 4 years with him, higher AAV. I think Peralta would like the 6-year security. I think probably what's going to happen, they're going to be in the middle. It's going to be a 5-year deal, high 20, you know, AAV, whether it's, you know, 28 million AAV, 27, somewhere around there. And even like I said before, like when you look at the factors around Freddie Peralta, like, it's just, I think it's going to happen because, you know, also you look at the fact that, you know, obviously there were the rumors about, you know, the whole clubhouse issues. Freddie Peralta from his time in Milwaukee, and even he's talked about it in an interview, and other teammates have confirmed it as well, that he's been a very good culture guy. Obviously, you know, we've heard the stories that typically on...
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
You know, typically on the, you know, those like 1:00 games after the game, he, you know, invites all his teammates out to, you know, to his house to a barbecue, which is cool. And also, it's just like, you know, when you look at him, you know, in his interviews, and, you know, some of the reporters ask him about it, they ask him about a possible extension. You know, he kind of, you know, he gives off those smirks. He tends to tag his friends in the comments section, and like you figure it's like, obviously he's not going to say something because he doesn't want to hurt his leverage or anything, but I think something will get done. Like I said, I think probably ideally it's going to be a 5-year deal, high 20 million AAV. And like Carson, the other thing, like you mentioned, is there anything that would possibly turn me away from a Freddie Peralta extension? Not really. The only thing that would tend to maybe turn me away is if it's like what Tony brought up, where it's a 7-year deal, an 8-year deal. I don't think I would go as far as that, but I don't believe, like what Evan talked about, that he's going to ask for 7 years. Like I said, I think they'll just meet in the middle. It's going to be a 5-year deal, and then, you know, we'll go from there. And also, like I said, I'm open to a Peralta extension as long as it doesn't take him out of the running for School Bowl next year, which I know that's still a year away. But to be honest, like from the comments that Steve Cohen talked about, you know, when he first started spring training, you know, he talked about, listen, I got money too, like the Dodgers. I want to spend it. So it seems like a Peralta extension is not going to take him out of the running for, you know, for them to out of the running for Tarek School Bowl. So get it done. Just get the deal done.
Absolutely. I mean, they've gone so far, obviously, and we've talked about the need for the Mets having frontline pitching over the last 2 years, ever since they did move on from that Scherzer-Verlander duo from, old age hell that didn't work. When they moved on from that, there was a little bit of uncertainty in this rotation, not to mention, with a guy who they thought could give you frontline stuff in Kodai Senga, where it hasn't gone well over these last 2 seasons. And there's a little bit of come into question for a guy like Kodai Senga, what he can obviously provide. But when you're talking about building the team and overall building this rotation, all the options that they obviously have and all the bullets that they possibly can have to acquire talent like this, you obviously want to make it worth your while, even though the Mets do have plenty of starting pitching prospects that maybe can jump in with this. I firmly believe that, again, from what we are hearing, it's almost impossible to screw up contract talks with him, because from all the factors, like we are saying, he loves he loves his life right now in Port St. Lucie. He's been very talkative. They have not changed any of his routine, probably because it's a pitching coach that doesn't have his head up his ass and is signing autographs. Probably. Or you also have the fact of, well, David Stearns is very familiar with him. David Stearns believed in him from the very, very beginning when he acquired him as like an international prospect guy, kind of in the level of what we got from Jeff McNeil from the A's this year. That type of level of prospect, he believed in him. He put his chips in it on him, and they also developed him into such a great major league starter. Yeah, it was a trade for...
It was with the Mariners, if I'm not mistaken.
It was with the Mariners.
It was
traded to
the Mariners.
Yeah.
You got Adam Lind.
Yeah, it was the Lind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me see. I'm trying to see the actual specifics because we love our trade history here. As I'm sure one of C Chess, which he was here. He loves his trades. Yeah, so it was, let's see, traded to the Brewers from Seattle. I'm trying to see
I have the deal pulled up here if you want it. It was Peralta, Daniel Masaki, and Carlos Herrera to the Brewers for Adam Lind.
Yeah, so he definitely believed in him at 19 years old. So again, this is someone he's very, very familiar with. It seems like he's getting acclimated in camp. That's awesome. Everyone's been very, very friendly. And I think that it goes into a fact of, yes, maybe there is also some factors of what is the free agent market going to look like next year with an impending lockout. What is he going to look at for the market? We know that he's also not a Boris client. There's plenty of factors in here that I think makes us very, very confident that this could get done before opening day. Or maybe it gets done during the season because, like we said, very pixie of him to say that he wants to be, negotiating a contract maybe during the season if he wants to do so. And they've asked him about, possibly signing a contract and his, possibility of wanting to, sign here long term. He said no comment with a smile, which, by, a picture is... Fuck. Oh my God. I'm doing it. I'm not even doing it on purpose. Okay. I'm doing it on accident, but, which basically, a picture shows, is worth 1,000 words here. It's like, he's enjoying himself here. It's kind of similar to what you were seeing with, Francisco Lindor, with how he was enjoying himself before that whole contract talks completely dragged out. He was bringing in that big, what was it, the Coming to America jacket he had coming to. I mean, there was so much stuff that he was doing, and he was getting acclimated and getting so fit in, obviously. But there was a certain second baseman that didn't like that and kind of tried to ruin it. But we won't get into that. But I really do like how from day one, it seems like he sees himself as a fit here. And I think that that's definitely something that is very important when you're talking about the future of your baseball career, of where you actually do want to, where do you actually want to play long term. And we know that Freddie Peralta is going to capitalize on, the contract talks, or he's going to capitalize in free agency. He's going to get paid. He 100% is going to get paid. And at the rate that he is going, I really do believe that there is maybe, 3 or 4 more frontline years out of him where he is a solid piece to this rotation. And again, getting it out of the way for that pitcher coming from Detroit, who's going to be the marquee free agent that a lot of teams are going to be going after.
Yeah.
That's good. But that's the other thing too, is like, you want guys that want to be here, because how many times have we seen the Mets? They've had to overpay like drastically for guys to come here when realistically the Mets probably weren't their first choice. I mean, I think the most obvious one being Max Scherzer at the 21-22 offseason, where they had to pay him $43 million a year to get him on a 3-year deal, and look how well that contract turned out. I mean, apart from a good first year like Scherzer, and then even then, like, he had a good regular season, but then come playoff time,
I'll still never forgive him. I'll still never forgive him for that start. I never will. I'm sorry. I don't care if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer and he's a legend, which he is. I'll never forgive him for that. Just fuck him. Fuck Max Scherzer for that start. I'm sorry.
I was at that game. Evan was at that game. It was not fun being in that building that night. But also the other thing, like what Evan brought up, is like, again, it fits the team building philosophy that Stearns wants to implement, and also it fits the philosophy of other teams around Major League Baseball. Like I mentioned with the Dodgers, and again, Evan brought this up, but when you look at the Dodgers roster, it's either filled with cheap, good veterans or cheap young prospects. And then when you look at the other guys, it's those superstar players that are making a lot of money. You typically, when you look at the Dodgers roster, you don't see a lot of those guys that are like mid-tier level prospects that are making high money. I mean, the only one that you could really look to is a guy like Teoscar Hernandez, but even still, Teoscar Hernandez gives you very good value with his bat. So, and again, you could have like 1 or 2 guys there, but you don't want to fill out your roster with like 5, 6 guys of those, type of contracts and those type of calibers. And then even like, when you look at the rotation, and like, let's say the Mets do extend Peralta, we skip ahead to next year, they sign Tyler Skubal to a massive deal. And then, when you look at some of the contracts coming off the books, whether that be Benaya, Holmes, Senga, the Met, you could look at this rotation and you're like, okay, Peralta, elite, making good money. Skubal, elite, making good money. Nolan McLean, which is the one outlier, he has elite stuff, and he's also, on the cheap right now because of his, he's not going through arbitration yet. And then you look at guys like Tong, Scott, Wenninger, who also might come up. Like, like the Mets don't, you don't want to fill out your roster with like, and even like, even though like I still stand by the fact that I agree with bringing him back, but ideally you don't want to have to overpay a guy like Sean Manaea $25 million to bring him back.
Yeah,
you want to develop your own guys on the cheap, or like I said, pay those superstar level quality players.
You literally brought up every single point that I was going to make about how it also just in general reflects on you as an organization if you're able to start to get these guys coming through the farm system and build your way up to contention that way. It makes it a more attractive destination naturally.
You have to build a culture. A culture-changing
culture. So, David, don't be a dingus and sign Freddie to that team-friendly deal.
Don't be a dingus. And exactly when, guys like Miller, get to free agency, you pursue guys like that, going forward. And this is a side note, obviously, Pentry saying that was the year our hitting choked in the last 2 months of the season. Hey, listen, you're preaching to the choir here. You're preaching to the choir. Didn't we get one hit in Game 3 against Musgrove? I was calling out those flaws
from July
when they were happening. No one wanted to listen. They won 101 games. Hey, whatever. Position that we're in right now. I don't know what to tell you, but also that start from Scherzer in Atlanta was horrendous, and then against San Diego, that was just completely awful. I don't know if he did he basically took us completely out of that game before we even had a chance. I mean,
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
It just what a joke. What a freaking
dingus.
joke.
What a
What dingus he is. Anyways, speaking of individual performances, it's everybody's favorite segment, of course, Studs and Duds. One player that was great over this last week, one that was not, even though it's spring training and these games don't count. We give a little shout out to these nice performances or bad performances of what we're seeing on the field. Let's start off with the studs. Matt, I will start off with you. Who do you want to give the spotlight to from PSL this week?
There's actually a couple really good options because, like, even like when you guys talked about it, Carson, last week, like with Frank, like you mentioned, like there was a lot of under the radar guys that have actually had surprisingly good spring trainings. You know, some of the guys being like Talkman, MJ Melendez. I'm actually going to give it to the guy who was also acquired in the Freddie Peralta trade, Tobias Myers. He's looked very good in a small sample size that he's had, you know, appearances out of the bullpen. Like just like the stuff that he's been able to throw, the fact that, you know, he's had a ton of control in his pitches, the fact that he's been able to limit hard contact, he's been getting tons of swings and misses too. It's like this was one of the reasons why I liked the Tobias Myers inclusion in that deal, in the Peralta deals, because Myers is someone that the Mets have lacked for the last couple of years, especially ever since a guy like Trevor Williams left and he ended up signing with the Nationals. Yeah. Like they missed that swingman guy who was, you know, reliable to where it's like, okay, if you needed a couple of solid innings out of the bullpen or maybe even out of a spot start, you could count on Tobias Myers or like a guy like Trevor Williams to step into that role and execute it effectively. And like I said, I like the fact, you know, he's able to throw a lot of pitches. And I was kind of even, you know, thinking about it to myself a little bit, like Tobias Myers kind of, and I know Evan especially is not going to like this name because he hated this guy when David Stearns first acquired him. But he looks kind of like what Paul Blackburn was, but so much better because he fits that mold because he throws a lot of pitches and he's able to fit that role of he's able to fit that role of starting games and also come out of the bullpen as well. But like I said, he's just that much better because he has some more velocity on his pitches, and two, he has so much more control of the strike zone compared to what a Paul Blackburn gives you. So like I said, Tobias Myers he's just like a perfect fit to what the Mets needed this offseason. And I'm excited to see what he can do, you know, throughout the regular season this year.
Don't make me hate Moreland.
No, I said he's a better version, much better version. He's not Marlon.
Much better version. I mean, Paulie Punch-Outs was an all-star at one point, so, and I think he got hammered in the all-star game, but that's a different story. Either way, with Myers, that's a good point that you brought up. There's one like term that used to be used a lot. I don't know if it still gets used a lot in baseball, where you have a guy who comes in after the rain delay because it obviously messes up with a lot of the starters, of course. Could that happen a lot with Senga? Probably, because, you know, he'll be like, the cuticle on my left pinky finger hurts after, you know, standing in the rain a little bit, because he just can't deal with adversity. But the weatherman, basically, the weatherman role, where the guy comes in here, he can, you know, eat a bunch of innings, and, you know, he's someone who can come in here at any point and, mop it up. I don't know if that was a term that was in the Mets booth for a little bit, but it's the weather stopper, you know, whatever you want to call it. Mother Nature's stopper. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a guy who can mop guys up when you have the unfortunate guys who ruin the routines of a lot of these starters during these rain delays. And when you get, a guy like Tobias Myers, who I think his stuff is phenomenal, mainly his overall command and his pitchability is insane. But also, we would talk about induced vertical break. This guy can reach, 20 inches of induced vertical break on his fastball. And he has been scouted as one of the guys who is one of the best at tunneling pitches. So this is a pitchability type of guy who I think is going to have a field day with a guy like Justin Willard, who has talked about the importance of command, and not as much as I think the guy that's gonna thrive under Justin Willard that I'm gonna put out as my stud here for the week. Evan, I'll get to you afterwards because I do want to actually do a little bit of a rundown on it. Christian Scott, I mean,
that was gonna be one of my picks potentially.
Amazing. He's back and he's in full command, coming back obviously from Tommy John surgery, including the internal brace procedure that he had back in late September. His last appearance that he made was obviously farther. Before that, they were kind of in limbo of like the the elbow strain or something. So he's finally back. He missed over a year, and he looked extremely sharp. We were seeing a lot of reports about, when you come back from Tommy John surgery, specifically as a starter with that workload, sometimes the command gets to you. Well, it didn't get to him whatsoever. He made his return. He faced 10 batters. He pitched 2.2 innings scoreless, gave up 2 hits, 5 strikeouts, 11 swings and misses on 49 pitches. 40 of those pitches were strikes. Like, just so efficient, perfect. And we all know that Christian Scott is known for a guy with his command, his overall deception from that low arm angle. That seems to be lowered down a little bit in comparison to last year from 32 degrees to 26 degrees. And it looks like his slider has a little bit been made to a little bit more of an adjustment, which I personally think is a cutter. But we'll see how that gets reclassified on some of these websites. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a rundown later on in the season with that. But now he is averaging over 90 miles an hour on his slider, which I think is more of a cutter, like I said, to complement the splitter and sweeper for him being more of an arm side pitcher, which was, it was phenomenal to see. Obviously, I always compare the guy to Nathan Eovaldi, of a guy who's just incredible with, his overall deception, his ability to get right-handed hitters out, ability to go deep into games, and also walks no one. Incredible command of the zone. He always seems to be like he's ahead of the count always. And it's all really just about the emphasis of how he's going to pitch to left-handed hitters, which again, see how that obviously pans out. Now, Evan, I may have stole yours, but I just wanted to do a little bit of a rundown because I am really excited to see what we get from Christian Scott. I feel like we're really excited with a lot of these guys, and hopefully this becomes the new norm under this team, and we're not just like, hey, we ruined another one.
Well, the good news is there's so many options to pick from that even you saying Christian Scott's not that big of a problem, because I have 2 honorable mentions I'll throw out there. I didn't really want to talk about them in depth just because I don't think they're making the team, but Christian Pache has been unbelievable for whatever reason.
Yes, yeah.
Austin Barnes might give Luis Torrens a reason to worry about his backup catcher role. But the guy that I want to highlight, it came down to 2 guys. One of them was Clay Holmes, but I'm going to talk about the Seaman Shake man, Marcus Semien. I mean, he looks rejuvenated right now, and I don't know how much it will translate into the regular season, but people are going to get pissed off that I say this, so get off my lawn, fans. But like, even on some of the foul balls that he's making contact with, or some of the lineouts and pop outs, like the exit velos are there, and he looks like the guy that I was hoping that he would be, and potentially more. And it really just goes to show in general how excited I am to see the new hitting philosophy developed here under the new hitting coaches with Albert and Snicker. But yeah, Marcus Semien has looked really good so far this spring. Honestly, wouldn't hate if he was in the top of the order right now if this translated into the regular season.
Wouldn't I mean, you could see it. Maybe he does. Maybe he does lead off if Lindor is not ready going forward. But we will see. Another guy I want to mention. Robert Stock has been amazing in his second stint back with the team. He's been very vocal on Twitter, talking about a lot of, some of the adjustments that he was making, talking about, his overall arm angle. Like he seems to be someone who is very in depth with a lot of these certain numbers. To try and get better. We know Robert Stock, the first time he was here, wasn't great. He got hurt. Then he goes off to I don't know if it was the KBO or Japan, something. He goes off somewhere, and he was really, really good. The Mets signed him to a minor league deal, and maybe he is someone who can be in that pipeline, who can help you in that in that way. But you go to the dud category. This one's pretty much low hanging fruit at this point.
Yeah.
But I'll open the door for it. Maybe there's some other guys that you can put in there, but
I mean, I have two.
Get Craig Kimbrell out of here. Get this dude out of here. I have already talked about Craig Kimbrell. This guy drives me up a wall, and at this point, you're seeing a guy sit 92, 93. He can't get the fucking ball over the plate at all. The guy is cooked. He's washed. Like there is nothing else that can convince me that he isn't. He just looks completely hittable whatsoever. He's falling behind in the count. They're running all over him too. I mean, he just looks awful. Move on, please. Just cut him right now, so I don't need to talk about this all spring of, well, he's one of the main remaining guys because he's got a track record. I don't care. I really, really don't care. He looks like crap. All right, just get him out of here, please. I know that Frank is not going to like that, and he loves his Hall of Famers. And yes, he has had a fantastic career, but it's time to be a family man. Okay, yeah. It's really time to be a family man, Kimbrell. It's like this is depressing to watch. It's really, really just bad. He's just not good anymore. And we all knew that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's sad when they go young like that, but
it really is.
He could go hang out with Frank. And Unk could hang out together now.
Unk
but
times two.
Honestly, my dud was gonna be the same exact person that was mentioned in the chat, Mark Vientos.
Yeah.
I'm not liking what I'm seeing at all. And truthfully, right now, like, I really wouldn't bat an eye. It's not going to happen, but I really wouldn't bat an eye if they went into the year with Melendez and Talkman on the roster instead of Mark Vientos. Like, I really would not care with how bad it has been for him, and we're just not seeing improvements for someone that need to show it early going into spring this year after how bad it was last year.
I mean, we always talk about the limitations with Vientos. If he doesn't hit, he's the worst player in all of baseball, and I think it's already pretty evident because he doesn't provide anything else. He's out of minor league options, so decisions are going to have to be made. Matt, if there's anybody else you want to throw into the fire for the dud category.
Yeah, surprisingly, there weren't actually a lot of duds to consider, and both Kimbrell and Vientos were both my two options, so I'll just briefly touch upon both. I mean, yeah, listen, Kimbrell's done. Like, the fact that this guy's only sitting at 92 miles an hour on his fastball, he has no control of the strike zone. Like, the fact that you have to see Francisco Alvarez go out there and basically waste challenges on pitches to just try to get him through innings, I mean, it basically tells you all you need to know that the guy's done in Washington. Listen, respect to the guy. He's a first ballot Hall of Fame closer. He's going to get into Cooperstown, but he's done. And listen, I didn't have a problem with bringing him in on a minor league deal because it's like, hey, why not? See what you get from him. But yeah, it's clear that the guy's washed. He's a ginger unk. He just needs to go and retire and do whatever he's going to do. Like Evan said, become a family man. And then with Vientos, I mean, again, like, you would think, like, after the fact that he had a disappointing season last year, you would think with the addition of the two new hitting coaches in Snitker and Albert, and the fact that we know that Vientos, when he's on his game, he's more of a pull hitter, you would maybe think that, okay, maybe this is the time where we start to see Vientos take that, not next step, but he could, get back to some sort of semblance of where he was in 2024. But it's clear that, listen, could he still do it? Sure, but it's not looking great so far in a short amount of time that we see him in spring training. I mean, just bringing up the numbers, like 13 at-bats, 1 hit, no home runs, 1 RBI, 0.077 batting average, a 143 OBP, and a 297 OPS. I mean, And then also, not to mention that the guy he can't play defense. I know the Mets played him at first base, but he still looks awkward even playing at first base. And don't even think about putting him at third base because the guy can't play third base whatsoever. And listen, I agree with Evan. Even though I don't think it's going to happen, I kind of am in favor of maybe starting the season with both Tauchman and Melendez on the roster, because at least those two guys can actually play solid defense. I mean, MJ Melendez has surprisingly played a decent outfield so far, and we know that Mike Tauchman's just, a solid veteran who, can hit, get on base, and also play solid defense in the outfields. But yeah, I mean, Vientos has just not shown anything so far in AAA to show that, he's warranted of a major league spot. And like I said, you would think like the fact that, that his roster spot is under threat, maybe that would give him a kick up the ass, but it just doesn't seem like that's the case right now.
Yeah, I just see him slowly morphing into JD Davis, and I don't like it, obviously, because we saw the impact of Mark Vientos, obviously, in 2024, and they obviously went farther with that in comparison to JD Davis, who had the breakout in 2019. The thing is that I don't see that much of a contribution ceiling from him. I know he could be a good hitter. I know he can, but it's like, it's either you're the DH or not. And he just basically clogs up a roster spot if he's not hitting. To his defense, I will say, it looks like from some of this underlying data, he still has been hitting the ball hard, getting some really good quality of contact. I'm really just, seeing a lot of these fly swat swings from him that he usually does. We know that the chasing is a problem. He has flaws. He has holes in his swing. He has holes in his offense, which is his main asset. And that's the main reason as to why I think is a problem for him, because it's a dilemma where you can't even roster the guy if he's not hitting. And that's the problem with him. And that's how you can say, yeah, well, they can move on really, really quick from this if they do so. I heard that he actually had 2 good games in these exhibition games for Team Nicaragua. Maybe he builds on that. Like Amizi is saying in the chat, saying maybe Vientos can raise his value in the WBC. We'd hope so. I would love to see it, because that would make the Mets lineup even deeper than it already is. But, you can't just completely sit here and wait around. Like NG is saying, people are banking on Vientos returning to 2024, but I think the writing is on the wall that he probably won't return to that. You got to move on from him while you can. And that's the only thing. It's like when you talk about guys who have peaked offensively, this is all he's got. And I appreciate what he did in 2024. I think he was awesome, but there is faults. There really, really is faults, and he will continue to be a question mark no matter how much no matter how much success he has offensively, because of how limited he is as a player, especially at a young age. Like, he is possibly the slowest 26-year-old you will ever see in your life. And that's not something that we know that David Stearns likes. He's not really a big fan of, one-dimensional players. Doesn't matter if they're fan favorites or not. He'll let them go to Baltimore. He doesn't give a shit. He likes a certain player. He'll move on. So, again, that wraps up Studs and Duds, obviously. And, again, these are exhibition games. Maybe our takes here don't age well the next time that we are live. Who knows? But, however, let's get into the rapid-fire stories, and then we'll preview a little bit of the WBC, which is extremely exciting, obviously, with Team USA debuting tomorrow. Either way, here are your rapid-fire stories for this week. The Mets have signed right-handed pitcher Denise Correa to a 2-year minor league contract. Correa is 26 years old and a former international signing by the Cubs back in 2016. He spent 2025 in the Mexican League and posted a 2.08 earned run average across 26 innings pitched while playing Pacific Winter Ball in Mexico. The Mets have also signed right-handed pitcher Dan Hammer to a 2-year minor league contract. Hammer is 28 years old and a former 13th round pick by Baltimore back in 2019. He spent 2025 in the Rays organization as as a Rule 5 pick and posted a 6.57 earned run average across 38 and a third innings pitched for Double-A Montgomery. The Mets have optioned right-handed pitcher Alex Carrillo to Triple-A Syracuse. Carrillo was a minor league signing out of the Independent League last offseason by the Mets and appeared in 3 games out of the bullpen during the 2025 season. Left-handed pitchers Anderson Severino and Matt Turner have been reassigned to minor league camp in the first round of spring training roster cuts. There is now currently 70 players remaining in Mets Major League camp. Mets center fielder Luis Robert Jr. began playing minor league spring games yesterday as his slow ramp-up continues. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza specified that Robert has already taken about 50 plate appearances in live batting practice, but the amount of games he will play before debuting in the Mets lineup is yet to be determined. The 28-year-old Robert has yet to make his spring debut due to a need of strength and conditioning in specific lower body muscles. Mets starting pitcher Kodai Senga will make his spring debut on Saturday versus the Cardinals in Jupiter. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said the 33-year-old right-hander looked very sharp in his latest live BP session earlier this week. Senga is coming off of back-to-back injury-riddled seasons after struggling to regain form after a hamstring injury, leading him to be optioned down to Triple-A Syracuse. Mets infielder Greg Kessinger has suffered a significant hamstring injury that could require surgery. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza revealed that Kessinger's recovery timeline would be at least 8 to 12 weeks, all but taking him out of consideration to break camp with the Major League club. As the grandson of 6-time All-Star infielder Don Kessinger, Gray signed a minor league contract with the Mets at the beginning of February. Mets star shortstop Francisco Lindor is progressing accordingly after getting his stitches removed from his left hand last week. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza said Lindor played catch on Monday, went through live defensive drills Tuesday, and began swinging the bat yesterday. The Mets still remain optimistic that Lindor will be ready for opening day after undergoing surgery to remove the hamate bone in his left hand just over 3 weeks ago. Former Mets outfielder Starling Marte has signed a 1-year contract with the Kansas City Royals. Marte is now 37 years old and spent 4 seasons with New York from 2022 to 2025, playing a total of 396 games for the Blue and Orange in that span. All right, so there are your rapid-fire stories. We have some other stuff as well that are extra notes, but with the obviously roster cuts, there was Christopher Suaro, who was also reassigned to minor league camp. And obviously he's a prospect. He wasn't going to make the team, but he actually also someone that I should have mentioned on the studs list as well, because he's actually hit 2 home runs and he's played a pretty good game defensively. He's a multi-positional player. Nate Lavender as well, the lefty, he was reassigned as well. He did not make a appearance, but he is back with the organization. And then also Sean Manaea will be making his spring debut tomorrow against the Marlins, which will be at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in West Palm Beach, which is a game that I will be missing because I will be flying into PSL, obviously. And there's, I don't know if there's anything else that was missed, just basically catching up on anything that we can announce here because, again, that was recorded like a day ago, so some things, upgrade in that way. But either way, let's get into the main event of this week, obviously, with obviously Evan and Matt will be hosting and guest hosting on here during the WBC for Team USA watch-alongs and post-games. Like we said, 8 o'clock for all 4 of those games. They're all at 8 o'clock, obviously. But we're going to preview a little bit of the WBC, of what is going to be going on, of course. As for for Team USA, we have quite a star-studded lineup, obviously, and a star-studded cast, and some stuff to talk about. So here is the roster for Team USA. Obviously, David Bednar from the Yankees, Matthew Boyd from the Cubs as well, or did he sign somewhere else? I'm not sure. You have Garrett Clevinger, Clay Holmes, and Nolan McLean, obviously, in for Team USA representing the Mets. You have Griffin Jacks, Brad Keller, Lewis Philly, so we're going to be seeing a lot of him. And then we also have Clayton Kershaw getting his send-off, which Why is Unk here? Who knows? Catchers, Cal Raleigh, and Will Smith, two of the best in all of baseball. Some of the other pitchers as well. You have Mason Miller, yeah. Coming out of the bullpen, we've got Paul Skeens, superstar in this game. Of course, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball at such a young age. Of course, Tarek Skubal is good as well. That guy's pretty good, but he's also going to be limited. We'll talk about that in a second. Gabe Spire as well, reliever for the Seattle Mariners. Michael Wacha, former Mets legend. You've got Logan Webb, Garrett Whitlock, and Ryan Yarborough, who's actually replacing the injured Joe Ryan, who was originally supposed to be on the roster. Designated hitter, Kyle Schwarber, the great Kyle Schwarber, after signing a 5-year, $150 million contract with the Phillies to stay there for a long time. Bad news for us, but listen, they wanted to bring him back. Infielders, you got Alex Bregman, newly signed with the Cubs. Ernie Clement, postseason legend. You have Paul Goldschmidt, another Unk here, who was chosen over a certain first baseman who scoops insane amount of ice cream. Bryce Harper, who is not a shortstop. I don't know why the hell he's in there listed as a shortstop, but we're just going to go with it. Gunnar Henderson, Bryce Terang, and Bobby Witt Jr., arguably the best shortstop in all of baseball. Outfielders, the young gun himself, Roman Anthony, future star in this game. You got Byron Buxton as well. Let's hope he stays healthy. Pete Crow Armstrong, you guys remember that guy? Yeah, he's going to be representing USA. And then, of course, captain of the USA roster. We're not going to say Captain America because that belongs to one man and one man only, that being Aaron Judge, who is the captain of that team. So this is a star-studded roster, obviously. Some of the best players in all of baseball. Let's just say that. Excited to see what we get from Nolan McLean. Excited to, see what the role is for a guy like Clay Holmes. How much would he possibly pitch? Who knows? But it looks like Nolan McLean, and we can start off the conversation here. It looks like Nolan McLean obviously had some vertigo symptoms earlier this week, and it looks like he's fine now. He pitched on the backfields in Port St. Lucie, and it looks like he is traveling to Houston either today or tomorrow, and it looks like he's lined up to pitch like maybe the third or fourth game of the qualifying rounds, and also the championship game if they get there. So big stage for the kid, and I'm really, really excited because we all know how good Nolan McLean can be, and you're going to see him on a big stage. So, Matt, I'll go to you first. I mean, what are you excited about? What are you, nervous about? Is there any culture changers that you think fly under the radar?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most obvious one, like in terms of, scares, is just don't get injured. Like, please, nobody get injured. We saw how that worked out with Edwin Diaz in 2023. Like, we don't need a repeat of that. So all the Mets players who are participating in this World Baseball Classic, I know the Mets do have a couple of players, Vientos for Nicaragua, Jared Young for Canada, obviously both McLean and Clay Holmes for Team USA. So like I said, just stay healthy. I mean, listen, the U.S. have a stacked roster, right? I mean, obviously, when you look at all the teams, we know Japan's good, Dominican Republic, they have a stacked team. Their lineup is just simply incredible. Venezuela's a good team. Obviously, Puerto Rico's a bit undermanned because Lindor can't play. Javi Baez got suspended for weed, which is just stupid. He should be allowed to play. Like
it's the most Javi Baez thing ever.
Like we're suspending players for smoking weed in 2026. Like, come on, man. Like that's clownish behavior. But I would say the thing that I'm most excited for is Nolan McLean. Like, obviously, we've seen him in his brief stint that when the Mets called him up last year, he was the Mets' best pitcher last year in that short period of time. Has looked very good in his couple of starts in spring training. And listen, I mean, obviously he's scheduled to pitch the fourth game because I know Logan Webb's going tomorrow. I think it's Skeens for the second game, Skubal for the third game, and then McLean for the fourth game. And look, if the U.S. gets to the final, which they probably should because I think they're the best team in this tournament so far, you get to see Nolan McLean pitch in a final, which is good preparation for this season because we know that the Mets want to go far in the playoffs. And if you get into the playoffs, you're playing in a ton of high intensity situations. So that could be a nice little kind of test for Nolan McLean to see how he does react in those high pressure games. So like I said, excited for the tournament. Just please no one get injured.
Yeah. It would be nice if you need to, for our pitchers, if you need to bring Justin Willard with you to keep you healthy. If that's your big omen there, that's fine. Obviously, speaking of pitching, we know that Tyreek Skubal has had some reports about how he might be like at a pitch limit, which again, he's treating his pitches like gold, which you get that he is doing it, but it's also kind of annoying. But to me, again, and I think I've already told you guys this, and I've said this already, this has Boris written all over it because he's a pending free agent. But, running from the grind, he's not being, committed to his country, he's not being a patriot, like guys like Brooks Raley, perfect patriots. But, Evan, I'll go to you on this. I mean, there's plenty to obviously look forward to because this is a stacked team. This has a lot of talent on it. But we all know that the pitching is going to be one of the things that bodes well in comparison to a lot of these other teams that maybe don't have that deep of a pitching roster. As long as, Clayton Kershaw doesn't get any meaningful innings, I think they should be good because there's 16 pitchers instead of 13 that you regularly have on an MLB roster.
Yeah, that's the only concern that I have really is that with Skubal and Skeens being limited with how much they're going to pitch, it does worry me, when you have to go to the Clayton Kershaws and the Ryan Yarboroughs of the world, because I don't really trust them once you get in the later stages and you're facing teams like Japan potentially, or, the DR who do have lineups that you could argue are up to par with Team USA. You could argue, sure, if you want to argue USA's better, you can, just because they're deeper, where those teams are a little more top heavy. But nonetheless, they have legit MLB players to where I do worry about that once we get in the later stages. But like Matt said, I'm excited to see how Nolan McLean's going to fare in big games. That's the thing that I'm really intrigued about because it sucks we didn't get to see it last year. That was the one thing that I was hoping down the stretch for the Mets sneaking into the playoffs. If everything else, because of how much of a shit show it was, if all else failed, I would have liked to have seen what Nolan McLean would have done in a playoff start. So to see him at least go out there in, not to say it's a playoff start in comparison, because he's probably not going to go the volume like he would in that scenario since he's not really ramped up enough. But if we're able to see him, fare well in these big games, especially if he's pitching in the finals, if they get there, that is something I'd really be intrigued to see. But yeah, I'm really just excited for that. And then even Clay Holmes too, just because he's had a good spring so far. And I've really been intrigued to see how Justin Willard's going to work with Clay Holmes this year to maybe get him to give you 5 to 6 innings more in his starts this year. Might not be the prettiest 5 to 6 innings, but to give you those innings. And yeah, I'm just intrigued to see how he fares as well.
Yeah, I do also have, I am very curious to see, and I don't know if this is a factor because it wasn't last time. With the pitching, obviously, there is no pitch clock. I don't believe so in the WBC. So does that will that possibly throw some pitchers off, and there's going to be a little bit different of rhythm when they possibly come back? Who knows? But we all know that Clay Holmes, in his first year of the starter, he's worked in the pace of having a pitch clock. Same goes for Nolan McLean. He was developed into that pitch clock in the minor leagues as well. It's a different generation of pitching. So on the Mets side, there's a different feel to it, but we'll see. I don't know if there's any pickoff attempts or anything, or there's a challenge system. I don't know if they have the same regulations. We know that it is it's MLB. I don't know. Is it MLB subsidized league? What is it by the MLB, or is it? It's like some separate. Yeah.
I know it's an MLB hosted tournament. That I do know.
Yeah, it is obviously because they have a bunch of stadiums that are in the major leagues, obviously that are more recently renovated that they put as the hosting, because we all know it's in Houston, and then there's
Miami.
There's Miami as well. I think it's the Tokyo Dome, right, for one of them.
Yeah,
So we
it's
will
four.
see.
It's
Yeah.
4 stadiums.
Yeah, obviously, it's four different stadiums, four different groups, obviously. But on the hitting side, let me just say, if you're playing in Houston, you're looking at the right-handed bats in this this quadrant of everything in the qualifiers, obviously, and you're looking at the right-handed hitters, the pole hitters, obviously. But when it comes to those right-handed hitters, you know that there's a decent amount of them that are obviously in MVP caliber MVP caliber conversations every single year, and likely will be. Bobby Witt is one of them, who obviously is a young star. He's going to be fantastic for years and years to come. And then there's the captain, Aaron Judge. You going to come up big, Judge? Or are we going to see another Aaron? Are we going to see another Pudge moment? I don't know what to tell you.
Aaron
Fudge
Embiid.
moment. Aaron Embiid. I don't know, but that's going to be a key. It definitely is going to be a key. And we also know that there's some pole hitters for Houston as well. But let me just ask you guys. We'll go one by one here. If you were to predict the best performer for Team USA offensively, who would you think is going to be able to rise to the moment and be a true patriot for his country? I'll start with Evan.
I'll say Kyle Schwarber.
Oh yeah, okay, that was my pick. That's my pick because it's Schwarber, big stage. Even though recently he has kind of on the big stage he hasn't been the best, but we know Schwarber knows how to rise to the occasion.
It's just that he's not wearing a Philly jersey that it will help him.
Ooh, shots fired. Anyways, I just got a notification that I do not like about a certain hockey team right now that I'm really upset about. Anyways, Matt, I'll go to you. Who do you think?
You know what? All four group stage games, they're played in Houston. We know there's one guy who just signed a big contract this offseason, former Houston Astro. Always love to take advantage of the Crawford boxes. Give me Alex Bregman. Again, pole hitter. We know Dakin Park's a very hitter-friendly park. So I think Bregman's going to take advantage of the fact that he's back in Houston. I think we're going to see him hit some nukes in the group stage games.
You could possibly see that. You really could. Let me just pull up this roster one more time. Yeah, another guy that I also think could be a big factor. Another guy that I think can also be a big factor offensively for this team. And hold on, let me make sure he's. Yeah, I also do think that this could be maybe a little bit of a chip on your shoulder moment for a guy like Bryce Harper, because we know that there's this whole thing with the front office right now where it seems like he's going back and forth with Dave Dombrowski right now. And obviously, we know that Harper has been known to rise to the occasion, has been good in the postseason. We also know that he didn't have the best series against the Dodgers last time out. The last games that he played that counted obviously for his team. So I think that Harper's a guy to look to. Schwarber is a guy to look to. Obviously, Aaron Judge. He's got to obviously step up. And I also do think that you're going to get maybe some of these role players maybe step up as well, like guys like Bryce Terang or something like that. You may have an unlikely hero. You just never know. And we also get to see Byron Buxton to see what he can do on a big stage, because we haven't seen much big stage moments from Buxton. He's either been hurt or he's either been hurt or he hasn't been. Oh, Byron Buxton, known white guy. Yeah, Andrew. Yeah. But again, there is plenty of guys who can obviously rise to the occasion here. But let's just go to one more thing. Who's the X factor? Who is the X factor of someone who obviously has to pull through? Or this team is just going to go down in flames? And it could be a pitcher. It could be a hitter. They're going to go, And he's going to be an embarrassment to the country too if he doesn't pop off. I mean, we can obviously say Aaron Judge, Tony saying Schwarber, man or mouse moment for Aaron Fudge. I don't know.
I would say he's the X factor because of that, because he just always is known to shrink in the big moment. Like it's really the time if he wants to change that whole narrative.
Yeah. But these games don't count, This is a pretend
Worthless
tournament, so it doesn't
classic.
matter.
This is plain pretend.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, Judge is the obvious one just because we know that he's had his deficiencies come playoff time and, his lack of ability to come through in the big games. But listen, everyone knows that come playoff time, come these big games, you need a solid, reliable closer in the back end of your bullpen. So I'm going to go with Mason Miller. Yeah! Because even then, like you look at the pitching staff, like apart from the big time starters, the Team USA team doesn't have like a lot of great relievers. I know Bednar's there, but you're looking at Miller. Yeah, he needs to come through in those big situations, and let's see what happens.
Yeah,
Paul Goldschmidt. You think Unk is the big factor?
Well,
yeah, I mean, I also think, when you said about the pitching, obviously, I do think that Paul Skeens is the X factor here because of the stuff that you were getting from Skubal, where it seems like he's very limited. He's pitching 2 games. He's saving bullets because of being a Boris client and everything, and they want to squeeze as much money out of the free agent market. Which again, he is that excellent and he deserves that money, but it's kind of frustrating for WBC for somebody viewing it. Be like, hey, we want your all here. We want it. We want the product not to be damaged here, and that's why I go with Paul Skeens because it doesn't seem like you have many limits on Paul Skeens either. And I also think he's probably going to pitch like a deciding game. Like he really what is he pitching?
Yeah, he's lined up to pitch a semifinal.
It's lined up to pitch the semifinal, so it's obviously going to be a do or die game. But we'll see if, it all really depends on the certain pitching matchups. You obviously have the opening game tomorrow against Brazil, which this channel will be live for. I won't be there because I will be traveling to Port St. Lucie. These guys will be co-hosting it for watch-along coverage and on post-game. As for the Mets and that situation there, I do want to point out some of the guys who are also going to be in the WBC. For us, representing the New York Mets, we have 18 different pitchers, and I'm going to try to go through them as quickly as I can. You have right-handed pitcher, minor leaguer Josh Blum, former 16th round pick by the Mets back in 2024. He will pitch for Team Israel. You have Mets right-handed reliever Huskar Brazaban. He specializes in dishwashing and yoga. He is going to pitch for Team Dominican Republic. You have Mets reliever Alex Correa. Yeah. You have Mets reliever Alex Correa, who is on their 40-man roster, who, like in the rapid-fire stories, he was just optioned down as one of the cuts. Minor league signing last year out of Indy Ball. He's going to be pitching for Team Mexico. 20-year-old Mets 20-year-old Mets minor league left-handed pitcher Jamdrik Cornelia, 20 years old, pitching for Team Netherlands. You have Mets minor league right-handed pitcher Jordan Geiber, former undrafted free agent back in 2022. Team Israel. Mets minor league right-handed pitcher Carlos Guzman, pitching for Team Venezuela. Obviously, Clay Holmes in for Team USA. You have 21-year-old left-handed pitching prospect Daviel Jurado, who is coming off of a huge breakout year in the Mets minor league system in the lower levels. Former international signing by the Mets back in 2023. He is pitching for Team Cuba. Nolan McLean, like I just said. Team USA. You have Mets outfielder MJ Melendez, who just signed a split deal with the Mets this offseason. He will be playing for Team Puerto Rico as the only guy for the Mets, playing for Team Puerto Rico, even though we would have loved to have Francisco Lindor there, but he was not cleared to play, even though he's not even cleared to play right now for the team in preseason. You have Mets 13th overall prospect, outfielder Nick Morabito, former second-round pick back in 2022. He is playing for Team Italy. Mets minor league outfielder Jose Ramos signed on a minor league deal this offseason. He is playing for Team Panama. Mets minor league reliever Ben Simon, who we actually mentioned earlier on, former 13th round pick back in 2023. He is playing for Team Israel. You have Mets superstar outfielder Juan Soto, also just a depressed, sad, lonely boy who misses Aaron Judge and the Yankees. He is playing for Team Dominican Republic. The Mets minor league right-handed pitcher Robert Stock, like we already said, who is back for his second stint with the team. Team Israel. And we have Mets infielder Mark Vientos, Team Nicaragua. And then we also have Mets infielder / corner outfielder, DH, whatever you want to call it, Jared Young, who is on their 40-man roster. KBO legend, playing for Team Canada. So there's lots of Mets representation throughout their entire organization. Some guys that we know more than others. Obviously, Brazaban, we know. Well known. Like I said, he is well specialized in yoga, dishwashing. He's a great actor as well. Great actor. He knows how to handle a lot of pressure. We know he does. Either way, Juan Soto, it's been great to see him hit some bombs in those exhibition games. Sucks that he couldn't do it for us in spring training when we needed it. What a loser. But you can really tell how much he really misses Aaron Judge out there. You can tell by the way that he points his toes, the way he washes his hands. It's very concerning, and committing 15 years to that, it's really rough. But the fact that he is, representing his country, maybe he's a little bit more, comfortable with a super team around him, such as the New York Yankees that he was on. Maybe he feels a little bit more comfortable before he returns to the slop known as the New York Mets, who have treated him so poorly. And no one can be like Aaron Judge. Nobody can be like Aaron Judge. I mean, Aaron Judge is the captain. He's a captain. Yeah, he's a leader. But either way, like we said, players to watch, plenty to watch. You guys are going to be watching the whole time here on this channel. Like we said, one more time, I will put it on the screen. Whoops, wrong one. And another one, wrong one. There we go. Nice little slideshow for everybody. It will be hosted by Evan and Matt from the Mets Central podcast. That is them, by the way, if you guys did not know. They will be live March 6th at 8 p.m., March 7th on 8 p.m., March 9th at 8 p.m., and also 8 p.m. Eastern Time on March 10th for when they play Brazil, Great Britain, Mexico, and Italy. That is going to be watch along and post game coverage. It is going to be quite the marathon, let's just say that. And I am very excited to see how this pans out. And I'm also excited to see a Mets weekly stream that doesn't have me in it. I know that I'm a superstar and everybody loves me. They don't. But I like to, I want to watch, from my pool chair.
From the cuck chair, yeah.
Yeah, from the cuck chair. Oh God, this is going to be a blast. So for those of you in here, this is the place to be for the next 2 weeks, as Evan and Matt are going to be holding down the ship here on Mets Weekly. And Andrew is going to bring some cakes, and we'll see. Andrew, I'm sure is going to be. He can definitely come on. Everybody. Maybe we'll have some special guests. You never know who pops in. Maybe some Mets creators. Maybe some other people. Maybe some characters from the Bible show up. You never know. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, God. What now? We'll see. But it's going to be extremely exciting. If anything, you guys want to hype up for this. Plenty. We've had a lot in the works. Let's just say that for the watch-alongs here for the WBC, which is always fun, especially when you don't have the curmudgeons complaining about it being a fake tournament. So yeah. Anyways, so yeah, covered the Mets, covered the WBC. Obviously, like I said, make sure to tune in 8:00, same time that we actually started this stream, and it'll be 4 times this week for the qualifiers, and then you also will have the quarterfinals, semifinals, championship as well. Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely excited for this one. I'm excited to see the WBC, of course, because this is definitely a fun time as long as nobody gets injured like the last time it happened. And it was a complete disaster. And I think we all can agree when that did happen, it pretty much derailed the Mets' entire season in 2023. So we'll see. I'll get to some closing remarks for you guys. Anything else you want to plug, put out there? Thank you for coming on once again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if anyone is interested in any hockey talk, tomorrow we'll be live for the trade deadline. So that'll be a long stream. And then other than that, yeah, excited to do the coverage here for the WBC.
Yeah. Matt?
Yeah. So always a pleasure to be on. And like Evan said, if you guys are interested in hockey talk, we'll be live for the trade deadline. We'll watch Chris Drury fuck up some more trades because everyone enjoys that. And then, yeah, obviously, like I said, we'll be here for the World Baseball Classic. We'll do the watch-longs, the post-games. I know the start time's 8:00. Maybe we'll start a little bit earlier, maybe like 7:45, just to start, have a little pregame thing. But, yeah, listen, obviously the watch-long should be fun. Maybe it's upcoming preview for what we can expect later throughout the season. Who knows? Maybe some more watch-alongs. Obviously, you guys keep out for more breaking news. That's all I'll say. But, yeah. Obviously we'll be back tomorrow, so catch us here.
Yeah, obviously. And same time as we started here. So it'll be 22 hours from now. So start the countdown. And hopefully we're blasting Freebird, but I don't think we can do it on here a lot because it'll probably copyright us. But it's whatever. You'll see it live, obviously, on the Mets Weekly Twitter. You'll see it live on, your individual accounts as well. It'll probably be on the Mets Central channel, if you so please. Nothing crazy, but yeah, it is going to be quite the fun time, like we said. But either way, as for this podcast of just overall Mets baseball talk in Port St. Lucie and the WBC, thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Turn on those post notifications to not miss when we go live, which we will be going live a lot this week. Like I said, make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. Follow all of us individually, including Mets Central as well. Links are all in the description. And also, of course, let's go Mets. Let's go Team USA as well. And we will see you guys tomorrow at 8.